All right, so once we're done listening and observing the locations, behaviors, and needs of our audience, the next thing we do is set some goals and strategies for our social media plan. So your textbook discusses, and you should really become familiar with, the 8 most common social media goals that companies have for their social media plans. An important note is that the list in your textbook is not exhaustive. It's also not a pick one list. Many companies have multiple goals for their social media plans. I found an article in Inc. magazine just in June of this year, and it talked about how most companies are focusing on the goal of brand awareness on social media right now. Even though social media has been around for a while and most companies do have a presence on social media, they're still working on using the platforms to really just build brand awareness amongst their consumers. And then the article goes on to discuss why some social experts really think that companies need to move away from focusing on awareness and starting to move towards other social goals. And this article is posted in Module 1 for further reading. And something for you to think about is, are there certain social media marketing goals that companies should be focusing on other than brand awareness? Where should that focus move to? And are there certain social media marketing goals that are better suited for certain companies? And, thinking about how the end goal is not to become a better social communicator, but to conduct business more productively. So how can companies conduct business more productively on social media through some of these goals? There's a video that you'll watch in Hootsuite University, Lesson 2, Video 1 of SCMD 150, and it's all about setting objectives, KPIs, and key supporting messages. So it goes back to reinforce some of the things that you'll read in Chapter 2 and also some of the topics that you'll see in the Inc. magazine article. But once the company has determined those goals for their social media marketing plan, the next step is to begin setting strategies for those goals. And so this is just a chart right here showing just how many social networks there are. And this is just a tiny little list of the many, many other social platforms available. And so how do you develop specific strategies for each platform that you plan to be on? There are a list of, I think there's 8 or 10 different strategies presented in the textbook, and very similar to the list of social media marketing goals, the list is not exclusive. And there are many other strategies that companies try to use to achieve their goals. And it's also not a pick one list. So companies use multiple strategies to meet those goals. We're going to talk about 3 of them today that I think are pretty important. The first strategy is converse, or have a conversation. So when we listen on social media, we gather data and information. And with that, we have to become active in the conversation when we execute our social media marketing plans. Publishing relevant content is a key way to start conversation among your consumers and with your consumers. And companies really need to take the time to converse with their customers on these social platforms. It might be explaining policy about the company or news about the company. It might be a way to reinforce different policies or new policies that are coming out. And it's a way to do that in a very conversational tone that's appealing to customers. So think about all of the different, if you have a Target credit card or a Kohl's credit card or any retailer credit card, when they update the different policies and terms and conditions, they send you a new packet in the mail. And I bet that none of you take the time to read those. And there's a lot of important information in there. And so maybe social platforms are a way to get that message across in a conversational tone that the customers will understand. So conversing is very important. And it's very important to be honest and transparent because that's the best way to build trust among consumers, which is one thing we know based on what we learned in Chapter 1. It's a way that social media marketing varies from traditional marketing. Another thing when we're talking about conversation, it's not just the initial post made by the company, but the company must stay involved in that conversation by engaging with customers, responding to their comments or feedback, and keeping the conversation going. Another strategy is to contribute on social media. So we need to contribute. The best way a company could contribute on social media is by positioning themselves as a subject matter expert in the industry, and showcasing what they know about the industry, the product, the competitors' products maybe, spreading knowledge about the industry in general, or by explaining very complex products to the customers. Is a great way to establish the company as a valuable contributor in the industry. And then the third strategy is to connect. Companies must connect with people on social platforms. Influencers are powerful people in a social setting, and we'll talk about influencers more when we get into our module 2. But influencers are people who have an effect and impact on the purchase decisions of others in a significant way. And the best way to impress influencers is to provide consistent levels of high customer service, both online and offline, so that connection with your influencers gives them a reason to share your company with their followers. So staying connected on social networks and social media platforms is a great strategy to help companies meet their social media goals. There's lots of additional examples of social media strategies in chapter 15 of your textbook, and that's on page 328. And the example is put into more common terms and helps discuss the strategies that social marketers employ. So I encourage you to take a look at that. But understanding the correct strategies to use to achieve the goals is key in the social media plan. There are some strategies that tie very closely to specific goals, and other strategies that can be applied to any social goal that the company is trying to achieve. And so we really look, when we're looking at that most common goal of brand awareness or brand building, these 3 strategies that we discussed today are the ones most often employed by companies in a social media strategy. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is the call to action. Once goals and strategies of a social media marketing campaign are established, the next step in the process is to begin tying those goals to very specific metrics, or what your book calls a call to action. So the call to action is our metric that we're going to look at. And the call to action is the action that you want someone to take at each stage of the campaign. So you can refer to table 2.1 in the second chapter of your textbook for some examples of different calls to action. When you're using a call to action, you're trying to increase the level of interaction and the level of engagement through very small steps that you hope will ultimately lead to a sale. We are going to look at an article published by Simply Measured regarding goals, strategies, and calls to action, or what they call metrics in the article. So the metric and the call to action are interchangeable here. The article is in the module for you to take a look at. And some of the wording is a little bit different, but the overall message is the same. So when we get to this step in the planning process, a social media strategist should have a call to action or a metrics map that really guides their thinking. And the map is set up in the framework of the consumer's buying process, which you can see the buyer's journey in that first column. Let's look at, just for this, reading this map here, we're going to look at driving conversion as our goal. So that's that third line, that's the decision. So we want the customer to do something. We're going to drive a conversion. That's our objective or our social media goal. Okay. Based on what we can see in the social media strategy column and the social media activity column, when we are driving conversion, we want to get that customer, we want to converse with the customer through posts and promotions. And so what are we going to do? We're going to converse. And how are we going to converse? We are going to post different things on our social sites, and we're going to promote different things on our social sites. And what our business impact is or what our call to action would be our KPI. So we want link clicks. We want customers to engage with us by clicking on our link and going to our website. And we also want to lead to a conversion, which is a purchase or a app download. We want them to do something that will help our company. The article goes through a case study for Harvard Medical School that shows how goals, strategies, and actions, calls to actions were set. And it completes the story by walking through the results. So the first half of the article is going to be really familiar to you. It's going to follow along with goals, strategies, call to actions, everything we've talked about in Chapter 2. But it's also going to jump ahead a bit ahead of where we are in the course. You can go ahead and take a look at that. We're going to circle back to those results section of this same article down the road here in a week or two when we talk about measuring the success of a social media campaign. But you'll have that in Module 2 to take a look at and read on. And this really kind of wraps up just those first 3 steps of listening, setting goals, and setting strategies for a social media marketing campaign. And so all of these help us build the framework of our social media marketing strategy. There are a few videos that you'll be watching in this module, and those are posted in the module for you to view. And they're also can be found in Hootsuite. When we come back in Module 2, we're going to start talking about social media etiquette and how to set and select social media audiences. And then from there, we'll jump into looking at each individual social platform and how companies start to analyze each one to see whether or not they would be successful on those sites.